Hello everyone. Today is the class number 9 of American literature. We are going to offer a summary of the movements of American literature or the ages of American literature after we have given an overview of the ages and movements of literature. Today we are going to wrap them up and to talk about them as a whole in one session so that you have a clear idea of what is going on in terms of timeline, in terms of characteristics, in terms of conjunctions or disjunctions. So we start with late 1500s to 1620 with Native American and Age of Exploration, where the Europeans started to invade the American soil, okay? And from 1620 to 1720, which is the Puritan age, where the Puritans, and these are mostly Europeans and mostly English or British people who were religious groups escaping religious oppression on the British Isle or British Isles. 1720 to 1820, the Age of Enlightenment. The Age of Enlightenment. Usually after Dark Ages follow Enlightening Ages. Yeah. And after Enlightenment, you have Romantic. Enlightenment, Puritan age relied heavily in dogmatic tenets. Now, Enlightenment age cherished reason and rationality. Now, with the Romantic age, people got fed up with reason and rationality, and they want to roam with their inner souls and self-expression, etc., etc. And after the Romantic age, we have people who are also fed up or indignant or angry or unhappy with Romanticism, trying to be realist, okay? And then the Age of Naturalism, which is an offshoot of realism, and then the Age of Disillusionment, that is 1920 to 1945. We talked about all these in the course of the classes before. And then from 1945 to present age, the Age of Anxiety. So we start, these are the timeline or the ages of American literature. Native American literature, oral culture, legends, songs, etc., etc. And then the Age of Exploration, where people such as Columbus and his contemporaries, followed by the Puritan age, William Bradford and Bradstreet, these people who wrote sermons, wrote speeches for the church, and focused in poetry, and they didn't have any interest in novel. The Age of Enlightenment, you remember Benjamin Franklin and the Age of Reason, the prioritization of reason, rationality, science, republic, okay, democracy, okay. Republic thoughts and democracy were predominant at the Age of Enlightenment, while in the Puritan age, people had to listen to the priests. The Romantic age, everybody has his own way of looking into the universe, the internal and the external universe, and these were represented by people such as Ralph Waldo Emerson. And you can say Transcendentalism is an offshoot of Romanticism, represented also by Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Nathaniel Hawthorne. Okay, the Age of Realism, you can talk about Mark Twain. We will come to Mark Twain and elaborate on his work. Naturalism, the Age of Naturalism, 1895 to 1920, and then 1920 to 1945. The naturalism aspect is prevalent in American literature in the time of the First World War. And this is very important, where naturalism focused on the gloomy aspect of life. okay? The age of disillusionment, when people started to discover the truth for themselves, to discover reality, to start disbelieving in things they believed in before. And then the age of anxiety, where everybody is unstable, people are looking for something, they don't know what it is. This is anxiety, okay? Now, Native American literature, primarily oral, passed down from generation to generation through storytelling and performance. These are the Native Americans that had hundreds of tribes and nearly 500 languages. And when you talk about 500 languages, this means that there was a civilization before the Europeans invaded the land and commit genocide or expel the natives from their own lands and establish their own colonies that ended up states that came together as the United States of America or the New England. The Native American literature includes myths to explain creation, how the world was created, okay, and tales of heroes and tricksters, okay. Originally over 200 distinct groups and 500 languages. This tells much about the people who dwelt that land. They are not few, they are many, okay? And they are not without, remember the Aztec civilization and the Maya civilization, all these civilizations, and the Cherokee group, which is a huge group in America, in Northern America specifically, okay? Collected in early 1900s by anthropologists, study human culture and growth over time, ever play telephone. Emphasis in North America literature. Nature is alive and aware, okay? Kinship with animals, plants, heavenly bodies, the land and the elements. This is why they took a number of animals such as their symbols, okay? As their symbols. Humans and non-humans part of a sacred whole. Humans do not have control over nature and they must act to maintain a right relationship with nature. When the wind, for example, is strong, then there is something wrong that is happening. You have to do something in order to calm the wind down, okay? So you have to have a harmony with nature in order to continue on your life. Trickster tales, mythic folk tales often involved a coyote or fox, animals. Why? Because animals or humans who engage in deceit, violence, and magic explains features of the world. Okay, if a man is a fox, if a man is a dog, all these phrases in language comes from the mythological relationship with animals because they were the first companion of man on earth, okay? They play, and remember the fairy tales, the parables, Aesop's tales. We have Kalila wa Dimna in Arabic. First explorers, Europeans traveled for adventure and recognition to find great riches, had been to India and China looking for trade. Slave trade began with Portuguese in 1400s to find land commissioned for their country to avoid religious persecution, to spread Christianity. So the Europeans left Europe, specifically the British or the people under the British Empire, okay, specifically in the English Isles, okay. They were adventurous. They went to America in order to find great riches. They felt that they will find gold and diamond and other riches in the American soil, okay? And to avoid religious persecution, religious oppression, and to spread Christianity. So many of them believe that they are going to the promised land or the new land of Canaan, okay? And this is the idea of manifest destiny. Everything led them towards that land. Explorers and slavery. Traveled to East Indies, which is in America, brought first African slaves. Africans with most Spanish and Portuguese explorers. Now, Christopher Columbus was sent to America by the Spanish monarchy, okay? And he's an Italian. He's not English, he's not Spanish. This tells you the map, gives you an overview of the map of colonization at the time. Indians were too vulnerable to European diseases. English in Jamestown brought first African indentured servants in 1600s. Indentured servant, the servant, it's not a slave. He comes by a contract, okay? By 1640, first American-built slave ship. They started to, because the land is vast and they need plantation, they need people to help them prepare the land for plantation and do the harvest. They needed people. How can do this? It occurred to their mind that slavery is the solution. First explorers, written accounts, historical and personal: Christopher Columbus for Spain, Alvarado Cabeza de Vaca, Spanish to Florida, William Bradford, Plymouth, Massachusetts, okay? John Smith, Virginia, Olado Equano slave narrative. These are examples of the people who gave account of their experience, okay? Historical narratives: audience, point of view, details, diction, author's purpose, primary and secondary sources. These are the things that, or the items, the audience, the point of view, the details. Diction is the language, okay? The author's purpose, primary and secondary sources. These can give you a historical narrative. Puritan literature. Characteristics of Puritan literature, as we talked about it before, but let us go for the characteristics here. It is devotional in nature. Devotional, it is dedicated to one idea, which is religion, okay? When you say devotional, it is religious. Non-fiction, fiction was not of interest to the Puritans. Say, it was written in form of sermons. Sermons, the speech given by a priest in the church in order to spread obedience, submissive approaches to life, okay? Essays, speeches, prayers, instructional, minimal poetry, okay? Even the poetry was used for instructional religious purposes. Anne Bradstreet, Edward Tyler, Jonathan Edwards are example of this. Remember Anne Bradstreet and her to her loving husband, her poem. Puritan beliefs included predestination and unfolding of God's will. Predestination, everything is written up early on, okay? Elect, very few are saved and will go to heaven. Elect, al-istifa, okay? Knowledge of salvation from religious conversion. Salvation is al-khalas. No salvation without religious conversion, okay? Original sin, human beings are inherently evil. Yeah. Your life is immersed in sins. You have to exert every effort possible to relieve yourself, to get rid of the sins. So repentance, showing regret, التوبة, depend on grace of God, okay? Sin could never be completely erased, okay? Guilt and remorse were signs of grace. So you have to show every moment to show that you have remorse. Remorse, you are unhappy. You prove always to be religious. Divine providence, belief God intervenes in daily life. divine providence, we in Arabic call it al-inaya al-ilahiyya. Yeah, these are all Puritan things. Hard work. In order to succeed in life, you ought to be hard-working person. Christian commonwealth. Each person, okay, puts the good of the group ahead of personal concerns. Education. Yeah, education based on the Bible also. Primary way to fight atheism, al-ilhad, and instill the value of hard work. Puritan beliefs also theocracy. Remember when we talked about Enlightenment, they preferred democracy over theocracy. When you talk about theocracy, in theocracy, only theocratic people run the country, run the place. Okay, theocratic means the clergymen, رجال الدين. Okay, the Bible was the supreme authority on earth, including government. Nobody has a say once the Bible is in presence. Okay? And here all rules of morality were severe and strict. No play on Sundays. Okay? Relations between the sexes scrutinized. Okay? Adultery, theft, punishable by death. Adultery and theft, illegal relationship between man and woman are or is punished by death. Blasphemy, okay, and disrespect of one's elders led to public whipping. Now, Enlightenment, which emerged as a response to all the restrictions imposed by Puritanism. Faith in natural goodness born without sin. Yeah. Helping others, possible to improve oneself, birth, economy, religion, politics, no predestiny. Okay? Cause others to search into all aspects of the world, interested in the classics as well as the Bible. Yeah, the Bible was the main source in Puritan age. Now they turn to classics. Optimism. Yeah, the Puritan tenets were much based on pessimism, that man is inherently sinful. Now, no, man is not inherently sinful. Sense of personal responsibility for success. Now, whereas Puritan focused on collective life, now look for your own personal concern. Now, Romanticism. Before Romanticism, I would like to add that Enlightenment was based on reason, rationality, democracy, republic. All these tenets are at odds with the Puritan tenets or the Puritan premises. Now, Romanticism, which again came after Enlightenment, the Romantic people were enlightened, but they want themselves to be enlightened not strictly according to science as the enlightened people were, okay? They had this side of personal reflection on life. Writing celebrated nature rather than civilization. Nature is beautiful, strange, and mysterious. Yeah, they focused on these aspects of nature, okay? Romantics valued imagination, emotion. Remember, Enlightenment valued reason, science, tangible exploration of life. Now, imagination is prioritized, emotion over rationality and reason. Emotion and creativity more important than individual than reason. Irrational depths of human nature explored. They wanted to explore these depths. Human potential for social growth. Romantics friends to the transcendentalists. Transcendentalism, it is a literary, philosophical, spiritual movement during the Romantic period. Okay? Transcend means to move beyond or across. Perceive truth through intuition. Intuition, الحدس, التأمل الداخلي, a spiritual reality which goes beyond the empirical and scientific. This is empirical and scientific. This is Enlightenment features, okay? Over soul, universal soul shared by God. humanity and nature. Since humanity shares a soul with God and nature, man intuitively knows things about them. Nature worlds are within our inner worlds. All is symbolic of the spirit. Romantic and transcendentalist writers include Washington Irving. Remember when we talked about Washington Irving, we said that he one of the first people to give American literature its personality, its characteristic personality. This is why he was called the father of American literature. Edgar Allan Poe he might be the most famous short story writer because he invented these aspects of single effect and of also the life and death feature of writing. Margaret Fuller, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and his self-reliance. Henry David Thoreau and his Walden, okay? His memories and his notes from Walden. Nathaniel Hawthorne and his Scarlet Letter, okay? Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and all these are important romantic and transcendentalist writers. Now, after Romanticism, we have Realism. Now, remember, in Romantic, inner soul, exploration of depths of a human being, the relationship between man and nature, all these are responses to Enlightenment and to Puritan age as well. Okay? Now, Realism, the literature here moves away from nature, spirituality, and creativity to where? Accurate, detailed. It focused on accurate and detailed portrayal, actual life typical to middle and lower classes. While during the Romantic period, writing was mainly focused on contemplation, on imagination. Now, Realism focuses on lower classes' life portrayed as if they are photographed. Reality is written about as it is, okay? And we will come to this when we study Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn, where the language is simply used according to the way the ordinary people, the laymen in the street use it, with mistakes, with grammatical mistakes, spelling mistakes, tone, accent, varieties of English. Class is important in realistic writing. Ugliness of war, poverty, and resulting sin. Stephen Crane, Mark Twain, Ambrose Bierce, Bret Harte, all these are important figures in realism. Naturalism is a branch of realism. Writers focused on how natural environment and this instinct influence human behavior. Fate of humans is beyond an individual's control. Yeah, you can see a feature of Puritan age here, where fate, everybody is destined to do something. He or she has to do it or has to face it. Humans are products of their environments. This is naturalism. Now, with disillusionment means to become disenchanted or disappointed, to be stripped of an illusion. Stripped of an illusion, you believed in something and all of a sudden you discover that your belief is based on illusions, is baseless. Your belief is baseless. Okay? Writing mimics confusion of the time. Stream of consciousness. Stream of consciousness is a term I want you to sit down and think what it is, because you might come across this stream of consciousness in your university years and exams as well. Free verse poetry, ending left for readers to figure out based on clues in the novel or short story. Open-ended works started to appear in the disillusionment literature simply because no problem has one solution, for example. Okay? Themes implied reader feels uncertain about outcome, reflects feelings of loss, of innocence, because the reality of situation becomes clear. Examples: F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby, William Faulkner, and his The Sound and the Fury. And The Sound and the Fury is a very, very important example of this illusionment of how life is falling, how things fall apart. Okay? Ernest Hemingway, and Ernest Hemingway is famous for The Old Man and the Sea, Farewell to Arms, and other short stories such as The Cat or Cat, I don't remember. It's a very, very interesting short story. The Age of Anxiety. The war, the Second World War, resulted in a lot of anxieties around the world, and specifically in Europe and in America as well. Social changes for women, African Americans, Japanese Americans, communist Americans, all these, in addition to the civil rights movement led by Martin Luther King, all these made life so anxious in the American mind, okay? These are the names of, a few names of the writers who were famous during that time. J.D. Salinger, James Thurber, E.B. White, W.H. Auden, Tennessee Williams, Truman Capote, Arthur Miller. Arthur Miller, by the way, wrote a very interesting play under the title The Crucible. The Crucible is built on Puritan age, but it was written also during this age of anxiety in 1950s to reflect how McCarthyism, and we will come to McCarthyism later on, how McCarthyism damaged the human life in America. Okay? I think I summarized all these together, and the next class, which is the class number 10, we are going also to talk about Mark Twain. Okay? For now, thank you and see you next class. Bye-bye.